Aurangzeb, 1618 to 1707. Biography. He was born in November 1618 at Dahod. His father was Shah Jahan and he was the youngest among brothers. He was the viceroy of Deccan Kingdom from 1636 to 1644 and 1654 to 1658. He dethroned his father and became the emperor. Aurangzeb as a person. He was deeply religious, self-disciplined, and industrious. He spent his time writing copies of the Holy Quran. He was ruthless, but avoided shedding blood unnecessarily. His courage in battle was undeniable. Aurangzeb as an emperor. Shah Jahan left the empire larger than ever, but Aurangzeb spent most of empire's wealth in wars. He was very religious and his religious reforms against non-Muslims received much criticism. He appointed theologians to assemble a book of Islamic law named as Fatwa-il-Alamgiriya. His goal as a ruler was to rule all over India. Role of Aurangzeb in the decline. Aurangzeb was the last great Mughal empire and he spent most of his rule fighting Marathas and Rajputs. During the final years of Aurangzeb's rule, the problems in the Mughal empire started to rise. Now we will discuss the major reasons that led to the decline of the Mughal Empire. War against Marathas. He started the war against Marathas and created enemies for Mughals in the south region. The Marathas defeated the Mughal army in 1737 and took over Malwa. It was a long war that continued for 25 years, due to which the state was left unattended and weakened the empire. Downfall of economy and high tax. The war costed the treasury drastically and the empire's economy in a miserable state. To cover up the loss, jizya, that is tax, was imposed on Muslims and the people started disliking him. Religious reforms. He destroyed Hindu temples. He enforced Hindus and Sikhs to live their life with respect to Quran. He made Hindus agitated by banning sati. Extravagance. He spent money on his luxuries. He built a pearl mosque for his personal use. He built palaces. His luxuries further weakened the economy. War of Succession. To get the throne, Aurangzeb had to fight with his brothers, but this war for throne turns out to be heavy on the treasury. Therefore, to avoid this situation among his three sons, he divided the entire empire, but in vain. They still fought over the throne. Prince Muazzam rose as the victor, but he died after a few years. Jahandar Shah was murdered within a year of being a victor. The succession disputes also affected the army strength because different fractions of the army men were supporting different princes, making the empire vulnerable. After the death of Aurangzeb, there were 12 claims on the throne within 10 years. In 1719, Muhammad Shah became the emperor. He was the last to claim the throne. Eventual break of the Mughal Empire after 1707. After the death of Aurangzeb, the Mughal Empire eventually declined and inevitably broke. However, since it was a very successful empire, it still took 150 more years for its definite end. Challenges of the empire. It was an empire that was difficult to administrate. The disputes of succession take a huge toll on the treasury. Aurangzeb tried to defend it but failed. The cost on the wars to stop rebellions like Nadir Shah was heavy. Rebel by locals. Since the empire was very large, it became tedious to keep an eye on everyone and stop rebellion from the locals. The locals who were in power, such as the zamindars, built their armies. After the death of Aurangzeb, they grew stronger, denied paying tax, and refused any new emperor. Rebel by princes. As the Mughal Empire weakened, the princes started rebelling to rule areas independently. They tried to rule areas that are far from the emperor's reach and didn't make any contributions to the empire's treasury. Rebel by Nawabs. The provincial governors, known as the Nawabs, were very important in carrying out the instructions for the emperor and the empire. Their loyalty towards the Mughals weakened as they became stronger and powerful. In the 1720s, the Nawabs separated themselves from the imperial control and stopped sending revenues to the empire's treasury. Rebel by Marathas. It was considered as the most serious reason for the decline of Mughals. Aurangzeb failed to defeat Marathas before his death. Under the leadership of Shivaji, Marathas' power expanded. In 1737, they defeated the Mughal army outside Delhi and took over Malwa. In 1760, they even captured Delhi. They became the most powerful people during the middle of the century. Invasion by Afghans and Persians. Since the Mughal Empire was divided within itself, it became vulnerable to external invasion. The first armed invasion was led by the Afghans and Persians. In 1738 to 1739, under the leadership of Nader Shah, the Persians launched an invasion. The invasion by Persians was nothing more than a successful looting expedition. They looted the famous peacock throne, jewels and gold and returned home. During 1747 to 1769, 10 invasions were launched by the Afghan leader Ahmad Shah in northern India. Military weakness and extravagance. The Mughal army became overconfident that resulted in their downfall. The Mughals became self-observant and started spending their wealth on personal pleasures. Role of East India in the decline of Mughal Empire. Background. During the 15th century, as the sea routes opened, new trade opportunities created for the Western world. The extravagance, wealth and splendor of the Mughals attracted the Europeans to do business in India. At first, the Europeans seemed completely harmless business traders. They were interested in Indian spices, cotton, gold, jewels and metalworks to trade. Trading posts were established along with military outposts by Europeans, Dutch, Portuguese and French with cooperation from the Mughals. Mughals saw the opportunity of higher profit by their trade and gave them their support. The British takeover. The East India Company was established by merchants. In 1750, the British East India Company gained supremacy among their competitors, especially French, in the form of British East India Company. The East India Company created a private army and played an integral role in the establishment of British rule. The decline of Mughals and the downfall of Marathas allowed British to take hold of India. They wanted to take control of all trade routes to eliminate competitors, as most of the trade passed through the subcontinent. The East India Company got bankrupt after the War of Independence 1857. The British government has seen the failure of the East India Company as an opportunity to take over India by blaming the company for the War of Independence. The British government seized assets of the company. British expansion in the subcontinent from 1750 to 1857. Resistance to British. In 1686, the East India Company refused to pay taxes to the Mughal Empire. Aurangzeb sent forces and defeated the British. Due to this defeat, a heavy fine was imposed on them by Aurangzeb to continue their trade. Additionally, in 1756, Siraj-ud-Daulah, the Nawab of Bengal, also attacked East India Company based in Calcutta. The British were again defeated and the city of Calcutta was captured. Both resistances show the power of Mughals had, while Aurangzeb was alive, as well as the bravery of local rulers after his death. The rise of British. In 1764, the rulers of Orissa, Bihar, Bengal and the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II were defeated by British, strengthening their position in the subcontinent. In 1782, Warren Hastings, the first governor, ended the First Marathas War by signing an agreement removing the threat of Marathas' power looming over them. The Marathas was strong and didn't allow the British to capture their land but rather agreed for negotiations. Another Sikh ruler, Ranjit Singh, was a threat and would not have let the British enter into Punjab, but an agreement was signed of everlasting friendship in 1809. Tipu Sultan and Hyder Ali, the Nawabs of Mysore, also resisted British but were defeated and killed in 1799. In 1903, the Mughal Emperor of Delhi, Shah Alam, was forced by British that he was ruling under their protection, making the British the indirect rulers of Delhi. The Industrial Revolution and advanced weaponry of British also gave them an edge over the Indian rulers who were using the outdated weaponry. The annexations by British. Annexation of Afghanistan, 1839. Russia wanted to expand its territory, which made the British afraid. They invaded Afghanistan but faced many difficulties, including the locals and terrain. Within 2 years, the Afghans rebelled and killed all of the 4,000 British men except a doctor who reported the incident. Annexation of Sindh, 1843. After facing a shameful defeat by hands of Afghans, the British were enraged. Under the leadership of Sir Charles Napier, they invaded Sindh to not only restore their pride but also to capture Bolan Pass, which was an important route. It was a shameful act because they violated their signed agreement with the Amirs of Sindh. Annexation of Punjab and NWFP. The British were afraid of Ranjit Singh, the Sikh ruler of Punjab, and wanted the Khyber Pass, an Indus River trade route, in their control. The Sikhs were aware of the looming threat and attacked the British in 1845. It was the first Sikh war. In 1848 to 1849, the Second Sikh War started. The British defeated them and took over Punjab along with NWFP.